The night has grown quiet now. Even the stars seem to exhale. You've wandered through gardens and ruins, myths and meadows, dreams tucked into leaves and laughter whispered into the wind. You've followed lettuce across centuries, not because it demanded your attention, but because it offered you something few things do anymore. A moment to be soft, a chance to rest. Tonight you've listened, not just to me, but to the quiet itself, to the hush between footsteps, to the curl of a leaf, to the truth that sometimes the most enduring things in history are the ones no one writes down, not because they don't matter, but because they matter so quietly. And maybe you're still awake, or maybe you're somewhere between here and sleep. That's okay. There's no rush. The story will still be here when you drift back. So tuck yourself in, friend. Let the past grow soft in your hands. Let the present forget its sharp corners. Let your dreams be green and gentle and full of leaves that never demand, only offer. That's the story for tonight. May your dreams be filled with wonder and peace. You wake in the same garden, but not with a start. No, you drift back into it like the way a leaf floats on still water. The stone bench beneath you is cool, your head slightly heavier than before. That lettuce, still there, still untouched. Maybe you dreamed about eating it. Maybe you dreamed about becoming it. Tonight, you're not alone. From the far end of the colonnade, you hear quiet footsteps, sandals dragging slightly, and humming tuneless, aimless. A kitchen slave approaches, balancing a tray with a lamp and a bundle of herbs. He doesn't see you. You're in that soft, invisible state between dream and story. He stops in front of a vine-covered wall, lifts a loose tile, and hides something inside. What does he hide? A handful of wilted lettuce leaves. Now that might seem absurd, but welcome to the next strange chapter of our story, the Cabbage Wars. Not wars with actual cabbage weapons, though. That image is glorious. No, this is a long-standing dietary debate in ancient Rome. Lettuce versus cabbage. It's the 2nd century BCE, and Roman doctors are taking sides. See, while lettuce was said to cool the body and calm passions, cabbage especially, raw cabbage was believed to counteract the effects of wine, prevent headaches, and even treat dislocated joints if mashed into a paste. The poet Cato the Elder basically wrote cabbage fan fiction. He claimed that if Roman men ate enough cabbage, they wouldn't need doctors at all. Ever. Which sounds like something a guy named Cato would shout across a dinner table. But this rivalry created a real culinary and philosophical divide. Popular historical fact of the night, Cato recommended cabbage juice as a pre-party detox method, advising Roman elites to drink it before a banquet so they could handle more wine without getting drunk. Science says please don't try that. Ever. Yet here's the quirky twist. By the late Republic, some Romans grew suspicious of cabbage's smell. It was too pungent to be trusted at night. One satire described cabbage as a loud vegetable that dreams too big. That's one way to put it. So what did this have to do with our dear friend lettuce? It turns out lettuce was offered as the more polite vegetable for late-night consumption. Silent, some called it. Discreet even. Think of it like the introvert of Roman greens. Quiet, pale, emotionally complicated. But lettuce had a problem, or several. First, Romans couldn't agree on when to harvest it. Some thought morning lettuce was virtuous. Others preferred leaves cut at dusk, believing they absorbed more moon essence. No one defined this, of course. And because Romans loved arguing about bodily fluids and planetary influence, there was an actual debate over whether lunar lettuce caused more moisture in the brain, thereby increasing dreams. Do we have proof of this? No. We have plenty writing things like lettuce at twilight may cool the liver, but stir the dreams, which could mean anything, including I had weird dreams last night. Let's entertain an academic question here. Were these beliefs about lettuce merely poetic metaphors about nature's balance? Or were they based on genuine attempts to track digestive consequences, however loosely? We know now that while lettuces contain lacticarium, a mild sedative compound found in the stem sap, it's not strong, but enough to make you feel relaxed, especially if you believe in it. So maybe there was something to the sleepiness. Now back to your invisible garden watch. The kitchen slave leaves. The stone tile closes. And in the hush, you hear the faintest squish, some poor soul stepping in something mushy. Probably a cabbage leaf. Poetic justice. Let's head indoors now. Inside the villa, candlelight flickers along frescoed walls. You pass a hallway where a servant is arranging amphorae of oil, another carrying a platter of olives. And on the central table of the dining room triclinium, there sits a single plate with a note. It's written in Latin, Roughly translated, do not serve this to Domina before sunset. Guess what's on the plate? Shredded lettuce dressed with vinegar and mint. That brings us to tonight's second curious scene. Elite Roman women, particularly those concerned with dreams, digestion, and domestic omens, had a reputation for avoiding lettuce after the ninth hour. That's roughly 3 p.m. in modern terms. The reason some believe that lettuce dulled the wit if eaten too late, that it weighed down the tongue, made speech hesitant, and made the brain too foggy for poetry, prayer, or gossip. And if you were a Roman woman with a salon full of witty guests that simply wouldn't do, it didn't help that early Christian philosophers began weighing in on the matter. Not because they feared lettuce itself, but because of its pagan associations. In certain cult rituals, particularly those involving fertility or dream interpretation, lettuce played a ceremonial role. A few very serious theologians declared lettuce unclean when harvested in the shadow of Mars. Mars, the god of war. Why would a vegetable absorb violent planetary influence? No one knows. But it makes you wonder how many salads were skipped out of pure astrological anxiety. All right, enough seriousness. You deserve your 3 gentle laughs for tonight. One Roman cookbook suggests boiling lettuce with perfume to remove its moon-induced bitterness. Sounds like the first overpriced spot detox. A graffiti found in Pompeii reads, "I ate the night lettuce. I regret nothing." Brave soul. And in a love letter from a senator's mistress, do not eat lettuce after Vespers. I want you clear-headed for poetry. You're smiling now, maybe, or just very relaxed. Your eyes trace the flicker of firelight across painted walls as the villa grows quiet. You settle on a couch just beside the courtyard. The marble under your fingertips is cool. Somewhere far off, a flute begins to play a soft, meandering tune. And through the open archway, that garden waits. Still moonlit and fragrant with herbs and mystery. And lettuce. Always lettuce. You're still in the villa, but this time the house breathes around you. The marble walls don't speak, of course, but they hum with memory. The sort of soft, polite memory that only old buildings and seasoned furniture have. You shift on the couch. Someone left a scroll unrolled beside you. Its edges are browned, its script neat. And its topic, a recipe. A recipe for lettuce. Tonight we step into the kitchen. Not just any kitchen. This is a wealthy Roman villa's cucina, alive with oil lamps, copper pots, and the distinct smell of garlic vinegar, and something slightly burned. Always something slightly burned. A cook is humming, his tunic is stained, his feet are bare, his temper surprisingly calm for someone who just dropped a ladle into the fire. On the table beside him lies a bowl of shredded lettuce, steeping in vinegar, honey, and crushed cumin. This isn't a salad. This is a sedative, a marital strategy, and possibly a political maneuver. Historical fact for tonight. In elite Roman circles, serving lettuce at the end of a feast was believed to help guests digest, calm their tempers, and politely encourage them to go home. It was the ancient version of dimming the lights and yawning loudly. But like everything Roman, the symbolism got complicated, because somewhere between the Republic and the Empire, lettuce gained a reputation. In certain regions, it was linked to passivity, sleepiness, even weakness. In fact, several ancient authors mocked other men for eating too much lettuce, a sly accusation that they were unmanly, indecisive, or too drowsy for politics. Imagine calling someone a lettuce eater as an insult. It happened. And here's where it gets messier. You see, not all lettuce was created equal. The Romans cultivated different types. Some were tall and bitter like tuca virosa, others round and tender. Some grew close to the ground and flowered at night. Those were the suspicious ones, the ones that, according to rural lore, whispered to the moon. Yes, whispered. There are scattered records, half in satire, half in agricultural guides describing late-night rustling in lettuce fields as the earth's sighs made visible. One farmer reportedly wrote, "If they sway too long after sundown, don't eat them." You have to admire a civilization that feared a vegetable based on posture. Let's take a moment to peek into the physician's pouch. You're now observing a Roman doctor's traveling kit. Neatly wrapped bandages, small clay pots, dried herbs, and nestled in linen lettuce seeds. Why? Because lettuce seeds were used in ancient sleep medicine, ground into paste mixed with wine or burned over coals and inhaled. The goal, drowsiness, but not too much, just the right dose. Roman physicians always walked the line between cure and curse. Here's your weird fact of the night. One medical text warns that inhaling too much roasted lettuce seed could cause the limbs to forget themselves. which could either mean fainting or a spontaneous interpretive dance. And yet, despite the anxiety, lettuce continued appearing on tables. Let's slip into a memory. You're now seated at a Roman dinner party. The host is old, half asleep already. The guests are gossiping about a senator's affair with a flute player. The slaves move quietly, replacing dishes, and just before dessert, out comes the lettuce. It's been chilled with snow from a nearby mountain. Yes, snow storage was a thing, drizzled with honey and served in silence. No one says a word. They eat, they blink, they begin to yawn almost in sync. One guest mumbles, "You know, in the old days we served cabbage instead." Another snorts, "That's why everyone in the old days was grumpy." That's the thing about Roman food. It wasn't just taste. It was symbolism, medicine, personality test. If you refused the lettuce, you might be bold, or rude, or simply too alert. And if you asked for seconds, they'd probably assume you were planning to fall asleep before the final speech, which honestly was a clever tactic. Let's pause for tonight's open-ended academic question. Was lettuce served at the end of Roman meals because of real pharmacological effects, or was it a performative ritual, part of the unspoken social contract that said this night is over now? Because Romans were masters of performance, they believed in dinner as theater food, as metaphor sleep, as a kind of personal politics. Lettuce wasn't just a garnish, it was a curtain call. You begin to drift now, not quite to sleep, but into a softer focus. The kitchen fades. The dinner guests blur into silhouettes, and your body feels heavier, like it's trying to become part of the marble floor beneath you. Before you go completely here are your 3 sleepy chuckles for the road. One Roman writer claimed lettuce was more loyal than most senators because it always turned up at the end. Another swore that he once dreamed of lettuce lecturing him about public policy. The lettuce won the debate. And in a household inventory from Herculaneum, 1 golden salad fork, 1 ivory lettuce knife, and 1 scroll titled, "On the Correct Use of Sleepy Greens." You smile barely, the kind of smile that's more in your chest than your face. The villa quiets, the candles flicker lower. Someone coughs in another room, then turns over on a creaky couch. You stay still, because tonight you've discovered a truth far older than you expected. Even the Romans knew that sometimes the most powerful thing at a party is knowing when to go to bed. The dream shifts again. You're no longer in the villa, at least not the part with couches and columns. You've wandered deeper past the kitchen, through a low wooden door, and into a small tiled room filled with scrolls, jars, and a certain medicinal smell that seems to cling to stone. This is the apothecarium, a Roman medicine room. And this tonight is where we discover just how far the Romans were willing to go to explain what lettuce did to the body after sunset. You're quiet as you move between the shelves. Each labeled jar contains something dry, crushed, or questionable. Crushed viper liver, ground oyster shell, powdered rose petals, and of course, dried lettuce seeds wrapped in linen. Near the back is a worn medical scroll, half unrolled on a marble counter. The handwriting is neat, almost tender. And the title, De somno per lactucum, on sleep through lettuce. Tonight's tale begins with a man named Galen, a physician so famous he might as well have been the medical influencer of the Roman world. Galen, who treated emperors. Galen, who believed deeply in humor's balance and the power of lettuce to control the soul's descent into sleep. He wrote that lettuce cools the liver, relaxes the stomach, and quiets the animal spirit. And if you're wondering what the animal spirit is, it's the Roman term for your awake, jumpy, overthinking brain. Galen believed lettuce told it to hush. But here's your historical fact tonight. He also warned that some people became too quiet after eating lettuce, drifting into such a state of passivity that they couldn't finish conversations or climb stairs. So, mild side effects. And while Galen prescribed lettuce for insomnia, others weren't so confident. You unroll the next scroll and find an opposing voice, Soranus of Ephesus, a Greek physician working in Rome, who thought lettuce might be dangerous for pregnant women. Why? Because it caused cooling of the womb. Now that might sound strange, and it is, but it reflects the Roman idea that everything you eat changes your internal temperature. Lettuce cold, too much cold inside the body. Unbalanced humors, disturbed organs, and dramatic results. Weird detail of the night. In one Roman medical recipe, lettuce is boiled in wine and applied to the soles of the feet. Why? Because doctors believed sleep could be absorbed through the toes. Apparently, that's where the dreams entered. And while you're chuckling, you can't help but admire the creativity. Romans didn't just eat lettuce, they mashed it, burned it, inhaled it, and used it as compresses on foreheads during fevers. One physician even claimed it could drive out demons of wakefulness. You wonder if that's where the bedtime lettuce myth began. You step back into the hallway carrying a mental map of Roman medical logic. And as you walk, you realize something subtle. The deeper you go into this villa, the more you notice just how ritualistic sleep was, how managed, how engineered. Because sleep in Rome wasn't private, not entirely. People slept in shared rooms. Servants knew your sleep habits. Doctors tracked your nighttime farts and your morning sighs. If you had trouble sleeping, it was a public concern, and often a lettuce concern. Now let's visit one more space before we rest tonight, the market. Yes, it's daytime now, time jumps gently. You're wandering through the crowded Roman Forum's sunlight, bouncing off white stone voices rising like seagulls. And amid the buzz, one seller stands behind a cart stacked high with leafy greens. His sign reads, "Moonpick Lettuce Dream Approved." Yes, even in ancient Rome, some vendors capitalized on belief. This man claims to harvest only at moonrise during an odd planetary alignment in fields whispered over by priestesses. His lettuce premium, supposedly free from nocturnal noise. Do people buy it? Of course they do. Because the Romans, for all their logic and roads and aqueducts, were still deeply superstitious. A perfectly respectable noblewoman might refuse to dine at a friend's house if the lettuce hadn't been blessed by a household priest. And a soldier, he might carry dried lettuce under his breastplate to keep nightmares at bay. Let's pause for our academic question tonight. Were Roman fears about lettuce after dark a reflection of real sleep patterns or an attempt to control the uncontrollable experience of dreams in a society that prized discipline? Because in Rome, sleep wasn't freedom, it was vulnerability. A time when the soul wandered, the body let go, and secrets slipped out in murmurs and twitching fingers. No wonder they tried to manage it with food. And now as you drift once again into that soft space between image and breath, your mind offers up a few final gentle laughs. One Roman playwright joked that a man who overslept after eating lettuce dreamed his taxes paid themselves. A nobleman's will included strict instructions: do not serve lettuce at my funeral banquet, lest the guests nap through my eulogy. And in a love poem, a woman teases her suitor: if you eat that lettuce, I'll find someone who stays awake. The candlelight returns. The garden waits. You return to that stone bench, the leaves still gently quivering under moonlight. But this time you lie down not because of fear, but because maybe, just maybe, the Romans were on. The wind is quieter tonight. You're back in the garden again because somehow all Roman roads lead not just to Rome, but to vegetables. The marble beneath you is cold but familiar. The stars above look like pinpricks in parchment. And the lettuce still here, still suspiciously green. But tonight, it's not just lettuce on your mind. It's what people believed happened after you ate it and then fell asleep. Tonight, we drift through the strange, sometimes hilarious, often eerie world of Roman dream interpretation. Because if lettuce affected your sleep, then dreams were next on the table. Let's begin in a soft-lit bedroom. There's a young Roman nobleman, maybe 17, just returned from his studies in rhetoric. He's eaten a small supper-bred cheese, and against his mother's warning, a little too much lettuce. He falls asleep in his family's cubiculum, the private sleeping room. And what follows? A dream so vivid he writes it down. A horse made of glass chased me through the Senate. My toga was on fire. Cicero applauded. In the morning, he shows it to a dream interpreter, a profession that, yes, existed. These were called coniectores, and their job was to unravel nighttime nonsense into coherent daytime advice. The interpreter reads the dream, nods wisely, and concludes, avoid debating in public this week. Also, don't trust anyone who owns a goose. This sounds absurd, and it was, but also it was normal. Historical fact of the night dream interpretation was so widely practiced in ancient Rome that emperors kept personal interpreters. Emperor Augustus even had his own dream scribe, who followed him during campaigns and recorded nightly visions as omens of political fate. But where does lettuce fit in? Well, according to some interpreters, dreams after lettuce were cloud dreams, full of foggy images, half symbols, emotional weight with no plot. One writer described them as dreams with the bones boiled out. In other words, lettuce made your dreams boring. And in a world that believed dreams were messages from gods, boring dreams were suspicious. Here comes your weird detail of the night. In some mystery cults, followers were told to abstain from lettuce for 3 days before dream rituals. Why? Because it dimmed the silver cord between the soul and the divine, which sounds poetic and confusing. Now let's turn to the household gods. You're inside a modest Roman home where a woman is lighting oil before the lararium, a small shrine to family spirits. Her daughter had a nightmare last night after sneaking lettuce from the kitchen. The dream. A talking goat warned her about losing her shoes. This apparently was enough to warrant a small offering to the household deity, along with a stern warning about midnight snacking. Roman parents didn't mess around with dream logic. They believed a badly timed vegetable could cause spiritual misalignment, especially in children or philosophers. And this brings us to the famed physician Aretaeus of Cappadocia, who once claimed that lettuce invites the body to sleep but not the mind. He meant that while lettuce calms the limbs, it stirs the soul. You might fall asleep, but your spirit would still be roaming the roof tiles, whispering nonsense to pigeons. Let's ask our academic question for tonight. Was this obsession with dreams a way for Romans to process anxiety through myth medicine and metaphor? Or did it reflect a deeper fear of the unconscious mind's power? After all, Roman culture was rooted in control of land law, appetite and emotion. Sleep was the one realm they couldn't legislate. So naturally, they tried to regulate it with dinner. And now for a lighter moment before we drift again, your 3 sleepy laughs. One Roman author claimed he dreamed of lettuce writing poetry, and the verses were too bitter to publish. Another dream interpreter insisted that dreaming of purple lettuce meant you'd soon receive confusing mail. And in a fragment of a play, a character mutters, "Don't blame me, blame the salad. It summoned the ghosts." You smile, or at least you think you do. It's hard to tell when your whole body feels made of warm sand. Back in the garden, the moon is higher now. The wind sighs once passing over the vegetable beds like an old priest performing a tired ritual. You rise from the bench and walk slowly between the rows. The lettuce doesn't look menacing. It looks soft, fragile even, but you don't pick it. Not tonight. You leave it growing. Because maybe it's been telling the truth this whole time. A truth not about fear, but about surrender. About letting go of the need to analyze everything. About giving in to the ridiculous possibility that sleep can be shaped by a leaf. And that dreams don't always have to mean anything. Sometimes they're just horses made of glass togas on fire and Cicero clapping in the corner. And that's enough. You're still walking through the garden, but something shifts. The path curves now, revealing a small gate you hadn't noticed before, wooden, weathered, half hidden behind a tall rosemary bush. You push it open gently. It creaks, as all good gates do in stories that want you to feel slightly uncertain, but not alarmed. On the other side is a narrower space, not quite a garden, not quite a courtyard, a place between places, a midnight pantry. You step into the gloom and find shelves of preserved herbs, drying roots, rows of amphorae, and baskets of strange little jars with wax-sealed tops. This is where servants store things not meant for the light of day, items only pulled out after sundown, when the masters have gone quiet and the house begins to stretch and settle. And there among the pots of fermented garum lies a familiar shape, a dark green bundle of carefully wrapped lettuce leaves. But these aren't for eating, they're for placing. Tonight we explore one of the most unusual and nearly forgotten Roman traditions, ritual lettuce placement. Yes, really. You might be wondering what could possibly possess someone to tuck lettuce under a pillow, above a doorframe, or beneath a bed. As it turns out, plenty. Let's begin with the bridal lettuce. In certain Roman households, especially in rural Latium, it was customary to place a head of lettuce under the marriage bed on the wedding night. Why? Because lettuce was believed to calm desire. Yes, you heard right. As absurd as it sounds, lettuce was viewed not as an aphrodisiac, but as a counter-romantic safeguard, a way to temper passion, a leafy, crunchy buzzkill. According to several medical writers, lettuce cooled the loins and reduced excessive fires. It was the Roman way of saying, let's be reasonable about this honeymoon business. Here's your historical fact of the night. The Emperor Domitian, notoriously fond of weird rules, reportedly had lettuce planted near his private quarters to symbolize restraint and virtue, though not everyone agreed that Domitian was the poster child for either. Now here comes the odd detail. Some Roman mothers also placed lettuce under their child's bed when the child was sick, not to cure the illness, but to pull out the heat and invite gentle dreams. Sometimes the lettuce was boiled, wrapped in cloth, and tied to the child's ankles like little leafy slippers. Imagine trying to explain that to your pediatrician. You move deeper into the pantry and the jars now take on stranger labels. One reads, Somniferum lactuca lettuce, prepared for sleep incense. Another simply says, do not eat after sunset. not again. Ah yes, the culinary warnings. You learn that in some elite kitchens there were entire scrolls of what foods could be eaten safely after the ninth hour again, roughly 3 p.m. Lettuce was debated hotly. Cabbage was banned outright. Garlic could go either way, depending on which god you feared more, Somnus, the god of sleep, or Mercury, the god of dreams and mischief. Academic question of the night. Were these nighttime food rituals based on genuine observation, mild sedation, indigestion, or were they cultural codes used to signal discipline, status, and piety? Because there was also class involved, the poor didn't worry about moon lettuce. They worried about hunger, but the wealthy, they had the luxury to fear salad. And with that fear came invention. Now for your 3 gentle giggles before bed. One Roman satirist claimed his neighbor placed lettuce on his head to keep out wicked thoughts, and it worked, until he forgot to remove it for court. A scroll found near Carthage includes this curse. May your enemies dream only of soggy lettuce. Savage. And a letter from a soldier to his mother, I still can't sleep. Tell uncle to stop sending lettuce. It smells like fear. You're smiling again sleepily now. The pantry fades. The smells of vinegar and dried thyme grow lighter, then drift away completely. You find yourself back in the garden, but this time you lie directly on the earth, staring up at a single flickering oil lamp balanced on a wall nearby. The flame dances, your breath slows, and you think how strange, how wonderful that a single vegetable could hold so much fear, folklore, and forgotten meaning. That someone somewhere once whispered to a leaf in the dark, and believed it whispered back. Tonight you don't begin in a garden or a pantry. You begin inside a Roman bathhouse, steam swirling, sandals clacking on tile, and the low echoing rumble of men trying to out-wisdom each other in lukewarm water. This place isn't about lettuce. Not yet. It's about bodily balance. Because if you want to understand why Romans feared lettuce after dark, you must first understand what they believed about the body, that it was a vessel of humors, 4 slippery temperamental fluids, battling for control at all times. And every bite you ate could tip the balance. In the tepidarium, the warm room, you watch 2 men argue. One, wrapped in a towel far too small for his opinions, insists that lettuce after sunset causes melancholy. The other, dripping with oil and self-importance, counters that lettuce prevents dreams of sin and therefore should be encouraged nightly, particularly in senators. Both are wrong, but both believe they are more correct than Galen himself. Because Galen, yes, we meet him again tonight, once visited a bathhouse and publicly declared that lettuce cooled the stomach but weakened the pulse. He wrote this in a scroll now lost to mildew, but quoted gleefully by a dozen lesser doctors who loved using lettuce as a scapegoat. Here's your historical fact of the night. In some elite Roman circles, men actually debated which foods should be consumed before bathing versus after. Lettuce was nearly always on the after list, but only if eaten early enough to allow for what they called digestio profunda, or deep digestion, before nightfall. So naturally someone pushed back. In this case, a poet named Martial. He was a professional grump known for writing epigrams that ranged from clever to rude. One of his lesser-known verses pokes fun at a bathhouse regular who refuses to eat lettuce at night because it ruins his reflections. Martial's advice: eat the leaf, fear not the ghost it invites. It's just a leaf. It doesn't know you. Spoken like a man who never had a lettuce-induced nightmare. Strange detail ahead. At least one bathhouse in Pompeii had a mosaic on the floor near the hot plunge pool that featured a head of lettuce. No context, no label, just a leafy green tile immortalized in stone like a quiet dare. You dry off now. Back in the dressing room, men gossip. A magistrate swears he won't touch lettuce until Saturnalia. Another insists his wife makes him wear garlic around his neck before bed to counteract dream lettuce influence. Someone offers you a fig. You decline. You're here for the greens. Let's shift again, this time to the countryside. You're walking a dusty road outside Rome, where small villas dot the landscape like sunlit secrets. And in one modest farmhouse, a woman is teaching her granddaughter how to cook a proper evening meal. She hands the girl a bunch of lettuce. The girl hesitates. It's too late, she whispers. The grandmother smiles. Then we boil it. Because that's what you did in the country, boil the fear out of your food. Academic question of the night: was the rural method of boiling dangerous vegetables after dark a legitimate health precaution, removing bacteria, softening fiber, or was it a symbolic act like washing away guilt, sin, or spirits? We can't be sure, but we know this: Romans believed in transformation through heat. Fire made things safe. sacred, digestible. And boiled lettuce wasn't just eaten. It was rubbed on temples, used as poultice, and even fed to anxious dogs. Yes, even Roman dogs had lettuce therapy. The record is slim, but one rustic veterinarian scroll includes this note: boil the green for the beast who will not sleep. Mix with ash and smear on paws. Cover with linen. Wait for dreams. It sounds more like poetry than medicine, but who are we to say? And now, 3 chuckles before you sleep. A Roman playwright once described lettuce as the pillow of the plate, claiming it was the only vegetable that came with its own nap. A graffiti near the Subura reads, "Let no man bring lettuce to my doorstep. My dreams are already too strange." And in a child's clay tablet, a drawing of a man, a bed and a lettuce leaf, with the caption, "Do not let this happen to you." You smile. The bathhouse fades. The countryside dims. And now you are back not in a villa or on a road, but in a dream. A dream of walking through your own kitchen late at night barefoot on cold tile. You open the pantry. There's nothing but lettuce. So much lettuce. It's glowing faintly. You reach for it. And you wake up, not with a start, not with fear, just with the quiet conviction that some vegetables are more than food. They are ideas, superstitions, rituals, warnings, comfort, and sometimes bedtime stories. The dream picks up where it left off. You're still in the kitchen, barefoot, calm, but vaguely aware that something's changed. The lettuce is gone, not eaten, just moved, as if it decided to find a quieter shelf somewhere. You don't chase it. You simply follow the scent, faintly grassy, faintly dusty, like old parchment tucked behind a pot of thyme. Tonight we go where stories often begin: the Roman bedroom. Not the kind you'd expect. Not silk, sheets, and perfume. No. This is the bedroom of a Stoic, a philosopher, a man who sleeps on a straw mattress with a bronze lamp and a scroll of Epictetus by his side. His sandals are neatly placed by the door. His mind is never at rest. But tonight he is thinking about lettuce. And he is deeply conflicted. Because according to some schools of Roman philosophy, especially the Stoics and skeptics, lettuce after dark posed not just a physical risk, but a moral one. Here's the logic. If you know a thing might disturb your sleep and you eat it anyway, are you not surrendering to appetite over reason? And if you do that, are you not compromising the harmony of the self? Stoics didn't fear lettuce because of superstition. They feared it because it represented loss of self-discipline, a lapse, a slide into softness. One philosopher, unnamed in most sources but quoted with dramatic flair, once wrote, "To eat the green after moonrise is to agree to chaos with a fork." A bit intense for salad, but hey, Stoics weren't known for subtlety. Historical fact of the night: Seneca the Younger, the great Roman philosopher and statesman, believed that most illnesses were caused by overindulgence of food, of wine, of thought. And while he doesn't name lettuce directly, he does warn against night foods that disturb the purity of sleep. It's not hard to imagine lettuce was on that list. But let's take a detour. You're walking now through the library of a wealthy Roman household. The scrolls are organized by genre: law, drama, medicine, cookery, dreams. And in a slim volume near the back, you find a curious text: De Herbis Nocturnus, on night herbs. It's not just about lettuce. It's about anything green and suspicious: purslane, chicory, endive. But lettuce takes center stage, appearing again and again in warnings like, "May cause forgetfulness of dreams. Should not be consumed during eclipses. If eaten after marital arguments, may cause prophetic sleep." Wait, what? Yes, apparently lettuce was occasionally seen as a dream enhancer too, but only in moments of emotional unrest. Only when consumed under duress. You can almost hear the whisper of a Roman wife to her husband: "Go ahead, eat the lettuce." Maybe you'll finally understand what I meant. Weird detail time. Some Roman dream theorists believed that dreams triggered by lettuce were darker in hue than others. They use that phrase, darker in hue, as if dreams had color palettes, which raises many questions. Chief among them, who's judging the colors? Anyway, you step back from the scrolls and wander into the open-air atrium, the central part of the Roman house, where the rain falls into a shallow basin and the sky looks closer than usual. A servant walks by carrying a covered tray. You ask what's on it. "Boiled lettuce," he says. For the master. It's well past sunset. You raise an eyebrow. He says it helps him think, but only if served with silence. And there you have it, the ultimate Roman contradiction. Lettuce is feared for disrupting sleep, but also embraced for inducing thought. Avoided at banquets, yet whispered into during rituals. blamed for forgetfulness, yet praised for clarity. Academic question of the night. Were Roman anxieties about lettuce truly about health, or was lettuce a canvas, a passive, pliable symbol onto which people projected all their anxieties about control emotion and the night? Because let's be honest, nobody's that afraid of a leaf unless the leaf is standing in for something bigger. Now for your 3 sleepy smiles before the night deepens. A Roman proverb once said, "Trust not the man who eats lettuce after dusk, for he trusts nothing, not even dreams." In a satire, a senator tries to outlaw nighttime lettuce sales, claiming it leads to philosophy among the unqualified. And in a children's fable, a mouse eats a lettuce leaf under the stars and wakes up convinced he's a poet. He is not. You laugh just enough to exhale. The stars overhead twinkle faintly, like they know you've been listening carefully. The atrium grows quieter. The lamp by the bedroom door has gone out. And in the corner of the garden under a fig tree, you see a faint, glowy shape. Not a ghost. Just a very proud head of lettuce. You wave. It nods. Maybe. Then you slip back inside, pull the wool blanket over your chest, and close your eyes. Not because you're tired, but because the story knows when it's time to pause. And so do you. Then he curls up and breathes deep. Lettuce. This room is small, the ceiling low. Clay oil lamps flicker gently along the walls. There's a wooden bed with a wool blanket, slightly scratchy but warm. In the corner, a small bundle wrapped in linen rests under the head of the bed. You already know what it is, and somehow you feel better. Tonight we return to where the fears begin, and where the comforts too are planted. Shadows stretch along the tiled floors. Market stalls begin to close. The city's appetite softens from hunger to habit. You find yourself drifting once more, not toward the garden this time, nor a kitchen or a monastery, but toward a quieter, older memory still tucked inside the Roman world. The day deepens. A childhood bedroom. And as you rest in this quiet moment, eyes heavy, body warm, you realize you've just spent hours thinking about lettuce. A Roman letter reads, "I cannot attend the feast. The physician insists I remain horizontal under lettuce supervision." Now for your 3 sleepy chuckles. Some centurions swore lettuce before bed reduced nightmares. Others claimed it made them dream of home, not battle. One general even forbade wine at night, but allowed boiled lettuce broth with a slice of garlic. He was promoted twice. Because we know this Rome was a city of noise, ambition, and clamor. But beneath it all ran quiet streams of herbal logic, domestic superstition, and small green leaves carried in waxed cloth like prayers. He stops, thinks, and adds a note. Because the morning is aging. The bread scent has faded. The sun is slipping into its serious position above the rooftops. And graffiti near the Colosseum. "He who mocks my dreams shall taste my salad." We think it's a joke. We hope. But you feel easy, carried, held by a story that has unspooled gently around you, not gripping your hand, but walking beside you, step by leafy step. Because even warriors believed in greens. You smile gently now. One medicinal scroll warns, do not mix lettuce with oysters. You will dream of the sea and wake in panic. Academic question of the night, did lettuce remain a sleep food through generations because of actual sedative properties? Or was its calming power rooted in ritual, helping the body obey the mind's decision to rest? The men cannot rest. Send more dried lettuce, the kind from Hispania. Let's shift again. You're now in a military encampment. Tents line the hillside. A cook stirs a pot over low flame. And beside the fire, a commander is writing a letter to his wife. You follow her home. Inside ground lettuce seed, rosewater, and a hint of cinnamon. And lettuce, odd whispering lettuce, had become part of the story. Not out of curiosity, but because her story is part of the wider truth. Everyone in Rome was trying to sleep. You glance at the apothecary's table. A woman is there now, middle-aged, pale, clearly sleepless. She holds out a coin and whispers, "The dreams won't stop." The rich in their silk-trimmed beds, the poor on straw mats and alley shadows, the soldiers, the scribes, the bakers, all of them chasing the same fragile silence. Not because cinnamon helps, but because it smells less like medicine and more like kindness. Was it effective? The healer nods. He gives her a small jar, maybe a little, but most of its power came from belief, from ritual, from the slow, deliberate act of preparing for rest. Historical fact of the night, the sap of wild lettuce lacticarium contains mild sedative compounds. Ancient physicians harvested this milky fluid, dried it into resin, and sometimes burned it over hot coals, letting the vapor calm anxious patients. Apply cooled pulp to temples of restless children. He doesn't fear the plant, he uses it. Yes, sleep smoke. Because in the hands of a skilled Roman medicus, lettuce wasn't feared, it was formulated. Controlled, measured, almost respected. You're standing inside a domed room lined with wooden shelves. Mortars, pestles, and bundles of dried herbs hang from hooks. The air is warm with the scent of vinegar, sage, and something faintly bitter, like boiled lettuce. Because while Roman diners whispered about dreams and dinner parties, Roman doctors were conducting quiet experiments in rooms like this, turning lettuce into poultices, pastes, tinctures, and sleep smoke. And here comes your strange detail. Some healers recommended combining lettuce with roasted owl feathers, not to eat, but to burn together, believing the mixture summoned dreamless sleep. Whether that worked is anyone's guess. A healer leans over his workbench, muttering to himself in Latin. His scroll is open to a list of prescriptions. You catch phrases like, "And tonight, well, this morning, we explore one of the most enduring contradictions of Roman thought: lettuce, as both poison and cure. Seed of lettuce steeped in wine. Lactuca infusum et somnum." We're heading to the apothecary's corner, where medicine and myth still brew in clay jars and sleepy conversations. You follow the smell. Not because you're hungry, but because this next chapter takes us to a quieter kind of hunger. A hunger for meaning, for healing, and for things that grow slowly and say very little. Just for softness. Not for sleep this time. But you linger in a kind of morning drift, caught between the rhythm of sandals on stone and the scent of warm bread breezing in from the baker's alley. And maybe that's all we need to know for now. You find a shaded bench, curl your legs beneath you, and close your eyes just as the sun slips over the rooftops. Just for a moment before the world wakes up completely. Just for peace. Because sometimes what frightens us in the dark comforts us in the morning. The city is fully awake now. The sky begins to brighten now. The first birds sing like they've been practicing all night. One temple account accidentally recorded a lettuce offering to Mars instead of Salus. The priest blamed poor handwriting and spent 3 days sneezing. Not fear, not superstition. And now, before we drift back into dreams, your 3 sleepy smiles. A Roman poet once praised his lover's beauty by comparing her to lettuce at first light, which was either very romantic or very confusing. The Romans believed in seasonal power and planetary influence, and in food timing so precise it bordered on spiritual choreography. You watch as a small group of women leave the temple, each carrying a bundle of lettuce wrapped in cloth. They walk home barefoot, silent faces, soft with meaning. Maybe the lettuce was never the problem. Maybe the hour was. And you step away from the market, leaving the vendor to his leaves, the priestess to her prayers, and the world to its shifting beliefs. Academic question of the night. Was the reverence for morning lettuce a sign of cultural contradiction, or does it reflect a broader belief that time itself changes the nature of things? That lettuce at dusk and lettuce at dawn are simply not the same. He nods. He knows the rules. And a child's riddle scratched on a wall. I am green in the morning, feared at night, and soggy in soup. What am I answer, lettuce? Or life? Something gentler. This is where we meet a goddess Salus. Odd detail of the night, some Roman temples only allowed certain foods as offerings depending on the hour. Lettuce in particular was morning only in many cults, offered to deities of peace, health, and renewal, but never to gods of warfare or revelry. Salus, protector of health and public well-being, was often honored with green offerings, herbs, roots, and lettuce among them. Her rituals were quiet, no trumpets, just calm gestures and early light. Back in Rome, the morning lettuce vendor is now joined by a curious figure, a priestess from a nearby temple dressed in pale linen, inspecting the leaves without touching them. She whispers to the vendor, "None that were touched before sunrise. Too powerful for dinner. What if lettuce wasn't feared, but perfect for dawn? Too strange for dreams. What if it was simply powerful?" Which raises an important point. Because the Egyptians grew lettuce long before Caesar wore sandals. In fact, lettuce played a central role in rituals to the god Min, who represented fertility and virility. Statues of men often featured lettuce stalks upright and imposing, symbolizing masculine potency. You can imagine the cultural whiplash this caused when the Greeks and Romans arrived and declared lettuce sedative. And here's your historical fact of the night: lettuce in ancient Egypt was a sacred plant. It was cultivated with care, harvested at specific moon phases, and used in both feasting and funerary rites. Some tombs depict lettuce being offered to the dead to ensure peaceful sleep in the afterlife. Yes, we're leaving Rome briefly just across the sea and down the Nile. But it begs the question if Romans feared lettuce after dark. Did they revere it in the light? Dawn picked lettuce. Because for all the warnings, for all the bedtime murmurs, lettuce was also celebrated. Worshipped even, which according to him carries none of the risks of its darker counterpart. In fact, he claims loudly as sleepy customers shuffle by that his lettuce is bathed in the sun's first mercy. Let's begin in Egypt. Tonight we explore that duality. You've heard worse slogans. You see, monks didn't want dreams. It's not forbidden, but it's watched. You're no longer in the monastery. The bells have faded. The cowl is gone. Now you're walking through a Roman street just before sunrise, when the sky is ink and lavender, and the baker's fires are the only heat in the world. Lettuce. Tonight you don't open your eyes in a villa or a garden. You open them in a place much quieter, a monastery on a Roman hill, long after the empire has begun to crumble, but before the lettuce has stopped causing concern. And not just any lettuce. You curl up on a wooden cot beneath a thin blanket, the stone wall at your back, and the faint scent of dried herbs in the air. Tonight begins with footsteps on stone. Julian stops, kneels, and inspects the leaves. He mutters something that sounds like a prayer but ends in a sigh. Hence boiled greens, prayers before bed, and no raw lettuce after sunset. And in a marginal doodle, a rabbit monk nibbling lettuce and falling asleep mid-mass, tiny ziz floating above his cowl. But you're here for a different kind of awakening. One particularly anxious abbot even banned lettuce ink, a pale green dye made from boiled leaves, after a brother claimed it made his copied psalms whisper at night. One herb garden included a warning: pluck, not the green before dawn, lest the moon's humor linger. The stones here are cool and lichen-stained, the walls thick with silence. You smell beeswax and parchment. Candles flicker low, and outside the night air trembles with the softest breeze like breath held in prayer. Because this morning something curious is happening. A man in a tunic too clean for a grocer is quietly setting up a small stall near the Macellum, the public market. Academic question of the night: did religious caution around lettuce evolve from health concerns, or was it part of a broader anxiety about anything that disrupted spiritual clarity, especially in an age where sleep itself was seen as both gift and test? And for the first time in a long time, you feel what the monks hoped for: not silence that is empty, but silence that is full. Full of memory, of rhythm, of something that once was feared, then blessed, then boiled into peace. Yours. Historical fact of the night: early monastic rules, like the Regula Benedicti, included strict guidelines about food. While lettuce isn't named directly, the emphasis on light evening meals and quiet digestion after Vespers suggests that leafy greens were discouraged after prayer, possibly to avoid dreams that distracted from spiritual discipline. And sleep at last comes gently. I'll boil them, he says. Maybe then I'll sleep. Because in this monastery, sleep isn't just rest. It's vigilance, a moment where your soul is supposed to remain aligned. Anything that tempts dreams, visions, appetites, distractions must be moderated. Noctu hesitatio est. At night there is hesitation. He's not wrong. You smile in the candlelight. You walk with Julian now down the cloister hallway toward the garden where herbs grow in tidy rows. There's rosemary for remembrance, thyme for courage, and at the far end, in a patch half shadowed by a stone wall, lettuce. By this era, Roman medicine has started blending with early Christian mysticism, and lettuce has taken on new meanings. Once seen as a humoral threat, it's now regarded in some abbeys as a symbol of humility, low to the ground, bitter in the beginning, but soft in the end. Yes, holy lettuce. The monastery grows quieter. The oil lamps flicker. Somewhere a bell chimes softly, marking the hour not of action, but of stillness. Even monks, despite vows of detachment and routine, occasionally find themselves tangled in dreams of fire and floods and overgrown salad. The city is still asleep, or pretending to be. Then with deliberate motion, he writes a note in the margin. It's likely he was just overtired, or creative, or both. Time now for your 3 sleepy smiles. A monk once recorded a dream where a head of lettuce recited the Psalms in perfect Latin, then bowed and vanished. And here's your odd detail. Some herbals from this period show illustrations of lettuce with tiny halos above the heads, signifying that the plant could be cleansed of its darker properties through blessing. They wanted silence, both inner and outer. Dreams were loud. Dreams were unpredictable. And lettuce, they believed, invited that noise. He's selling lettuce. Because even now, centuries after the Republic has fallen, the fear of Laktuka lingers. But the ban stayed, because even monks have nightmares. He's not selling fish or grain or fruit. The story doesn't wake you, it waits for you. This monk, let's call him Julian, leans back, cracks his neck and mutters, "Why must the leaves cause so many questions?" Yet the fear hasn't vanished, only shifted. He sighs, "Not this again." You're in the scriptorium where monks spend hours copying ancient texts, their hands ink-stained, their eyes half-closed from strain. And tonight one of them has paused mid-sentence. He's staring at a passage from Pliny the Elder. The topic, blessed by hand, sometimes by candlelight, never harvested on a cloudy day. And in a lost children's scroll, a final bedtime instruction, if you fear the monster beneath the bed, feed it lettuce. Monsters hate salads. A scratch line on a villa wall, he who sleeps without the leaf shall dream of frogs. No one knows why. And you observer, traveler, listener, settle too. Here are your 3 sleepy smiles before the dream deepens. A Roman nurse once claimed her secret to a quiet nursery was less wine, more lettuce. She was promoted because somehow being reminded that someone once thought lettuce could protect a child from bad dreams makes the world feel a little softer, a little stranger, and a little more tender. You chuckle, sleepily now, because the boy's asleep. The monsters are full, and the leaf lies still. Now let's return to the boy's room. Because in Rome, self-discipline was the first lesson, and sleep was an early test, and sometimes threats. Sweet, a little eerie, entirely Roman. The lamp is low. The linen-wrapped leaf has cooled further. Outside, someone is singing gently, maybe a lullaby, maybe a prayer. The boy stirs once, then settles. Leaf so cool, leaf so green, keep my dreams small and clean. Strange detail of the night, some Roman children were taught to press a lettuce leaf against their forehead before bed, to press out the fire, especially after tantrums. In some families, this was as common as brushing your teeth. One scroll even includes a child's rhyme. And here comes your academic question. Did these bedtime lettuce rituals serve a therapeutic function, calming the child through placebo and routine, or were they part of a broader cultural training in self-control, preparing the young Roman to master sleep, as he would later master speech, sword, or senate? Because dreams in Roman childhood were not cute curiosities. They were messages, warnings, sometimes gifts. Can we have the warm leaf again? I dreamed too loudly last night. The tutor frowns, let us again. And so begins a tradition of childhood rebellion, avoiding greens, not for taste, but for pride. Only babies eat bedtime lettuce, they declare. And yet, that same boy hours later will whisper to his nurse. As you drift across time tonight, you find yourself in a schoolroom where boys in tunics are reciting Virgil, their voices rising and falling like songbirds trapped in parchment. One boy stifles a yawn. The class giggles. It wasn't science, it wasn't superstition, it was family habit. Historical fact of the night, Roman domestic life was filled with small inherited practices that blurred the line between science magic and bedtime comfort. Sleep preparations included not only herbs and chants, but also amulets, dream-blocking charms, and yes, lettuce bundles cooled with spring water. You're watching a boy tonight, maybe 6, maybe 7. His name doesn't matter. What matters is the ritual. Before bed, he recites a line he's been taught since birth. Let no dreams trouble my brow. Let the leaf lie still. Even Pliny, who usually had an opinion about everything, once admitted that lettuce, though common, appears to carry more influence in the chamber than in the field, which is a very Roman way of saying kids sleep better with salad on standby. And somehow, miraculously, he sleeps. But not everyone agreed. Mothers passed it to daughters. Slaves whispered it to the children they raised. And over time, it became truth through repetition. Specifically, sleep lettuce boiled, pressed, wrapped, and cooled. A remedy placed. Tonight, the city fades. You don't hear the footsteps. You don't smell the bread. You don't even see the marble. Because this time, you're not in Rome. You're on the road. A long, dusty road stretching through the Italian countryside, lined with cypress trees and low stone walls, echoing with distant sheep and the slow creak of wooden cartwheels. And you're not walking it alone. Travelers pass you in both directions, farmers with baskets, soldiers with horses, pilgrims with sandals worn thin as parchment, and among them, a healer with a sack of herbs slung over his shoulder and a very specific request at every tavern he visits. Do you have fresh lettuce? Because even on the road, lettuce has a role. Tonight we explore the curious tale of lettuce as travel medicine, roadside superstition, and a leafy passport of peace. Let's begin at a way station, one of many dotting the great Roman roads. Simple shelters offering food rest and rumors. You step inside. The air is warm, thick with the scent of olive oil and wool. A few travelers nap against the walls. The innkeeper's chopping something behind a counter. You peer over. Lettuce, again, but not for dinner. For a poultice. Traveler's ankle, she mutters. Hot from walking too long. Lettuce and vinegar will quiet it. You're not surprised anymore. Historical fact of the night. Roman texts from physicians like Celsus describe lettuce not just as food, but as a topical treatment applied to sore joints, inflamed skin, and yes, tired feet. The cooling properties weren't just metaphoric. They were applied reality on the roads. And here's your odd detail. Some traveling merchants carried dried lettuce tucked in their tunics, not to eat, but to wave over their heads while sleeping outside, believing it repelled nocturnal spirits, particularly the ones that whispered bad dreams in foreign tongues. You follow a small caravan, now merchants heading north. At night, they camp beside a grove. Firelight flickers. One of them opens his satchel and pulls out a pouch. Not coins, not wine, but lettuce seeds. He grinds them with honey and offers the mixture to his younger brother, who's tossing and turning on a bed of straw. Too many towns, he says. Too many stories. My head is loud. The elder nods. The leaf will hush it. You watch the boy sleep. Eventually, the seed paste smeared like memory across his forehead. Let's pause for our academic question. Was lettuce's portability what preserved its mystical status, easy to carry, easy to grow, easy to believe in? Or did its very ordinariness make it a perfect tool for rituals of reassurance, especially far from home? Because lettuce doesn't shine, it doesn't sting, it doesn't demand, it simply shows up. And maybe that's why it fades. Now you're walking again, this time with a group of pilgrims. They sing low songs and speak of temples and signs. One woman carries a basket, not of relics, but herbs. She's the unofficial healer. She ties lettuce leaves into little scrolls, blesses them with river water, and gives them to those who say, I dream too much, my sleep is crowded, the road is heavy. And somehow the scrolls help. Maybe not because they work, but because someone cared enough to wrap a plant in hope. Now for your 3 sleepy chuckles, a Roman travel diary once described a man who only slept under wagons, claiming rooftops confused the lettuce. A child's travel charm found in Gaul, a tiny doll with a lettuce leaf for a cloak. The inscription, let me sleep like stone. And an old joke among mule drivers. No road is too long with good shoes, quiet stars, and a crunchy leaf at dawn. You smile slowly now, because the road has lengthened behind you. The sun has dipped below the hills, and the firelight of the last inn flickers like it's blinking goodnight. You lie down beneath a fig tree, the earth dry but familiar. Someone passes you a linen-wrapped leaf. You place it near your head, not out of belief perhaps, but out of ritual. Because on a long road, sometimes the smallest routine can feel like a return home. And as the night deepens and the dreams soften and the world grows strangely quiet, you realize maybe lettuce was never about sleep at all. Maybe it was about the permission to rest. Tonight, the journey takes a different turn. You've walked roads, visited villas, listened in temples, crouched in kitchens. You've watched lettuce boiled, crushed, buried, blessed, blamed, and yet somehow you haven't yet followed it to its final destination. Until now. Because tonight we find ourselves not in a garden, but in a cemetery. A Roman necropolis just outside the city walls. Rows of low tombs, carved stones, wild poppies growing through broken brick. The kind of place where history whispers, but never interrupts your sleep, unless, of course, you've eaten lettuce. This is where we ask the question nobody really wants to ask. What did the Romans think lettuce had to do with death? The answer, of course, is complicated and leafy. Let's begin with a figure, Adonis. You may know him from Greek mythology, young, beautiful, tragically mortal. But in some later Roman mystery cults, Adonis became a symbol of rebirth and seasonal death. He was mourned in spring, remembered with flowers, and yes, associated with lettuce. Why is sûr? Because according to legend, Adonis died in a bed of lettuce? Yes, that's right, a lettuce bed. It's probably not what you had in mind for a tragic, mythological end. But the story goes that Venus or Aphrodite, depending who's telling it, laid his dying body in a patch of lettuce. The leaf became a symbol not only of cooling and calming, but of decay cutting fragile beauty, fading into sleep. It's poetic and a little absurd. And historical fact of the night. In some Roman funeral rituals, especially among cults influenced by Eastern traditions, lettuce was placed near tombs as an offering of rest. Not sweetness, not fruit, not wine, just a leaf, a signal of surrender. Because to some, lettuce wasn't just sleep food, it was death's appetizer. But don't worry, it's gentler than it sounds. You step between the tombs now, your sandals quiet on the dry earth. At one altar, a woman kneels. She's pressing a small bundle of herbs into a clay dish. You recognize the shape lettuce, crushed, fragrant, left in silence. For my father, she murmurs, may his dreams be calm. It's not fear you hear in her voice, it's hope, that death is a place of sleep, that sleep is a place of peace, that perhaps a quiet dream is the best kind of afterlife. And now we meet a different character, an undertaker, stooped, thoughtful, whistling a tune that's older than the city. He tells you offhand while sweeping dust from a stone that he always adds a lettuce leaf to the burial shroud. Not for the dead, he says, for the ones still awake. You pause. He continues, people want to know that something soft goes with them, something cool, something living that doesn't argue. You've never heard lettuce described so kindly. Strange detail of the night, some elite Roman families included lettuce in burial feasts, served cold and unseasoned. A dish called silens virides, the green silence. Guests were expected to eat it in silence, to reflect, to swallow slowly, to remember. It wasn't about flavor, it was about ritualized pause. A moment when the body said, I am still, I am listening, I am letting go. Let's ask our academic question now. Was lettuce's role in funerary context rooted in its physical effects, or did it evolve symbolically as a bridge between waking and sleeping, living and fading speech and silence? Because unlike figs, wine, or honey, lettuce never offered sweetness. It offered slowness. And maybe that's what mourning requires. Before we close your three sleepy smiles, one Roman epitaph reads, he ate the lettuce and never woke. Lucky man. It's unclear whether this was praise or sarcasm. A funerary carving depicts a sleeping child holding a lettuce leaf. The inscription, he dreamed well. And graffiti outside a tomb warns, bring flowers, not salad. I'm not that kind of spirit. You smile quietly now, because the sun has set fully. The stones are cool, the wind has stilled, and you understand something you didn't before. Lettuce isn't just a joke, or a fear, or a cure. It's a symbol of the gentle ending, of the pause after the last sentence, of the leaf you place on the table, not because it fills you, but because it finishes the story. You sit beside one of the tombs. You press your hand to the warm stone, and for a moment you let your breath match the pace of the earth. Still, slow, whole. The night is long now. Not heavy, not frightening. Just long the way a still lake stretches when the moon is full and nobody's in a hurry to cross. You're no longer by the tombs, but you haven't gone far. Just a few steps really into a garden behind the garden where only the caretakers go. A place for compost, forgotten tools, and one small bench with a cracked seat where old men come to sit and argue about things nobody else remembers. And tonight you meet one. He doesn't offer his name, just a nod and a question. Do you know why lettuce grows in silence? You think he's making it up, but you answer anyway, because it's polite. He smiles, because it listens. This is how we begin tonight's story, with lettuce as listener, witness, observer, and with the curious Roman belief that some vegetables remember. It sounds ridiculous, yes, but this is a world where dreams matter, where food changes depending on the time of day, and where silence is not absence but presence. And so we arrive at a lesser-known Roman idea, that lettuce absorbs mood. That's right. According to some rustic traditions, lettuce grown in angry households would wilt early. Lettuce grown in quiet households would stay fresh longer. Gardeners swore by it. Some even believed lettuce could carry messages, not with words, but with how it grew. A curled leaf meant unrest. A firm stem meant clarity. A bitter taste meant secrets. Historical fact of the night: in the Geoponica, a later Roman agricultural text, lettuce is described not just in terms of soil and water, but in terms of spirit. Certain farmers were advised to sing while planting, to avoid arguments near the garden, and to let no curses fall upon the bed. Yes, curse-free lettuce beds, because nobody wants haunted salad. And here's your odd detail. Some Roman homes hung dried lettuce above doorways, not to eat but to trap sour words. It was said that a bitter argument under a lettuce garland would lose its sharpness the way a sword loses its edge if cooled too quickly. You look at the old man beside you. He's still smiling. My wife used to say the lettuce listened to her better than I did. He doesn't say if she's alive. You let the silence answer for him. The garden shifts. You now follow a young bride entering her new home for the first time. Her mother places a bundle of herbs in her hand, parsley for clarity, basil for love, and lettuce for peace, she says. Lettuce in the bridal bouquet. It sounds absurd until you remember that weddings in Rome weren't about romance. They were about balance, future function. And in a house full of transition, you want things that cool, that settle, that don't talk back. Lettuce, it seems, was ideal. Academic question of the night. Was this personification of lettuce a leaf that listens, that carries mood? A remnant of older animistic beliefs, or a uniquely Roman response to a vegetable so dull it became meaningful through metaphor? Because when something shows up on every table, in every town, in every field, you start to look for signs in it. And sometimes you find them. Now for your 3 sleepy smiles, a Roman proverb: you cannot lie in front of lettuce. It already knows. In a love letter, you left me with wine figs and a bitter lettuce. Only one of them forgave me. And graffiti carved on a tool shed. If you speak harshly near the lettuce, it will not grow. But neither will your friendships. You close your eyes. Not because you're tired, but because there's nothing more to see in this garden. It has given you what it came to give: quietness. Not absence, not emptiness, just quietness. You lean back on the bench. The old man is gone now. The wind has stopped. The lettuce grows. And you, listener of stories, begin to understand why the Romans never quite stopped fearing and trusting the leaf. Because maybe they didn't fear the lettuce at all. Maybe they feared what it overheard. Tonight you return indoors, not to a grand hall or bustling kitchen, but to a quieter space. A space behind a curtain, a place not meant for guests. You're in a Roman servant's quarters. The ceilings are low. The air carries the scent of oil and linen and something faintly green. A single candle burns on a wooden crate. Nearby, a young woman in a wool tunic sits with a bowl in her lap. She's tearing lettuce, not for a salad, for a ritual. Because while the wealthy debated lettuce's effect on dreams and doctors, weighed its usefulness in scrolls and poets, turned it into metaphor, servants lived with it. They handled it, smelled it, slept near it, and sometimes whispered to it. Tonight we step into the world of household spells, kitchen charms, and lettuce as quiet magic. No temples, no scrolls, just old stories passed down hand to hand. The young woman, let's call her Livia, is preparing a charm. She places 3 lettuce leaves in a bundle with thyme, and barley wraps it in string and tucks it under her cot. She doesn't expect miracles. She just wants the dreams to stop, or at least to soften. Her mother taught her this in a village far from Rome. The leaf remembers the shape of sleep, she said. It will help your thoughts lie flat. Historical fact of the night: among working-class Romans, especially those without access to formal medicine, kitchen ingredients often became protective tools. Lettuce, believed to quiet the liver and cool the brain, was used in charms for sleep, fertility, and calm. It wasn't official, it wasn't recorded by historians, but it was remembered. And here's your strange detail. In some tenement homes, people tied lettuce leaves to water jugs during heat waves, not to cool the water, but to calm the vessel. If the jug was calm, they said, so would be the dreams of those who drank from it. You turn now toward another room where a boy is sick with fever. His older brother, no more than 15, gently places a mash of boiled lettuce on his forehead. Better than a priest, he whispers. Not defiant, just practical. Because when the city doesn't care and the doctor doesn't come, the lettuce is still there. And that matters. Now let's visit one more person, an elderly slave named Dama. She's in charge of the villa's garden. Every morning she wakes before the sun waters. The plants hums an old song in a language no one else speaks anymore. And every evening she harvests a single leaf of lettuce, not for eating, not for market, but for burying. Just one, tucked in a hole near the olive tree. No one asks why, no one questions it. But you follow her one night and ask. She shrugs. I promised someone long ago. That's all she says. And somehow that's enough. Academic question of the night. Were these domestic rituals involving lettuce remnants of older folk traditions, perhaps Etruscan or even pre-Roman, or were they quietly created by the poor as a way to reclaim agency in a world that rarely gave them power? Because in a society obsessed with control, the leaf became a tool for the voiceless, a way to shape dreams, to bless the sick, to bury something gently without being noticed. Now for your 3 sleepy smiles. A joke told among kitchen girls she dreams of emperors because she eats cabbage. If she ate lettuce, she'd dream of naps. An old superstition says lettuce leaves should never be swept with a broom, or they'll sweep your memories away. And a scratch note on a servant's doorframe: if I am not awake, do not shake me. The lettuce is working. You smile softly now. Because in these small rooms behind the wealth and the words, you find truths not written in stone, only in habit, in whispers, in green. Livia sleeps now, her charm bundle warm beneath her blanket. Dama rests beneath the stars, one hand still dusted with soil. The sick boy stirs, breathes easier. The leaf on his forehead droops like a tired eyelid. And you once again are reminded. The people who had the least in Rome often held the most ancient wisdom. Not because they read it, because they remembered it, because they lived it, and because somehow a simple leaf told them they could. Tonight you find yourself beneath a painted ceiling, not in a palace, not in a temple, but in a theater where the air hums with anticipation, where benches creak under shifting togas, and where even the wine vendors whisper so they don't miss the opening lines. You're in the back row. It's late. The crowd is restless. And on stage, an actor in a long robe is pacing with exaggerated flair holding a head of lettuce. And the audience erupts in laughter, because tonight's performance is a comedy, and the lettuce, it's the punchline. Welcome to the absurd, chaotic, oddly brilliant world of Roman theatrical lettuce. Yes, really. This evening, we leave behind kitchens, gardens, and tombs, and explore how lettuce, a humble vegetable, became a prop, a metaphor, and sometimes an insult on the Roman stage. Let's start with Plautus. You may have heard of him. Think of him as ancient Rome's Shakespeare if Shakespeare was obsessed with debt bathroom jokes and trickery involving household objects. Plautus loved using everyday items for laughs, and lettuce apparently was a favorite. Historical fact of the night. In several Roman comedies, lettuce is used as a symbol of cowardice, laziness, or overdelicacy. One character is mocked for sleeping too much. He lies in bed like a boiled lettuce, soft, wet, and pointless. The audience loved it, because lettuce in their eyes wasn't dramatic, it was boring. Common, the anti-hero of vegetables. Perfect for poking fun at snobs, weaklings, and philosophers. You watch as the actor takes a dramatic bite of the lettuce on stage and promptly faints, flopping like a fish. The audience howls, and someone behind you whispers, "That's exactly what happened to my uncle." Twice. You smile. Because even if it's over the top, even if it's nonsense, the joke lands. Everyone in the crowd has an opinion about lettuce. Everyone has a story. And theater, after all, was the great equalizer. Odd detail of the night, some traveling performers carried a lettuce kit, a few fake leaves, a dried-out head, and a prop knife used in multiple skits across towns. It became so recognizable that audiences would start laughing before the actor even pulled it out. You move now to the green room, a cramped space behind the stage where actors reapply makeup with chunks of pumice and gossip between scenes. One actor, wiping sweat from his brow, laughs. "Last week I played a ghost who couldn't rest because someone served lettuce at his funeral." Another groans. "That old sketch again." They all laugh, but not cruelly, fondly. Because even if it's a joke, lettuce carries meaning. It's part of their shared language. And now a brief interlude, the satirical poem. You sit in a wine shop later that night, where a poet, drunk and dramatic, is reciting new verses. He points to a senator in the corner and says, "He eats his lettuce with a knife. He dreams of glory but lives like broth." A weak insult maybe, but everyone laughs anyway. Academic question of the night. Was the theatrical use of lettuce a way for Romans to mock their own cultural contradictions? Mocking sleep while fearing it? Mocking vegetables while ritualizing them? Or was it just comedic shorthand for everything? Too soft, too careful, too real? Perhaps both. Because nothing is safer to laugh at than the thing you secretly take seriously. And now your 3 sleepy smiles, a graffiti near a Roman theater reads, "My wife took the last fig. I took the lettuce. Guess who's still awake?" A comic monologue features a character who blames lettuce for every failure in his life: lost bets, bad love, limp handshake. And a surviving line from an unknown playwright. He said he was brave, but he sweated like lettuce in heat. You lean back now. The wine shop dims. The laughter softens. Somewhere nearby, a lyre plays a lazy tune. And you realize, even in comedy, lettuce had weight. Even in jest, the Romans revealed their fears not by naming them directly, but by turning them into theater props and cheap jokes and curled leaves held dramatically at arm's length. Because sometimes the best way to tell the truth is to laugh around it. And sometimes the best way to sleep is to smile first. Tonight, the stage curtains close. The crowd disperses, the props are packed away, and the final joke about soggy lettuce echoes faintly in the alley behind the theater. But you don't go home yet. Instead, you follow a narrow path downhill past shuttered bathhouses and darkened inns to a place that rarely sees crowds unless the stars align. You arrive at a healer's tent pitched just outside the city walls. Faint lamplight glows inside. Linen curtains sway like breath. The air smells of chamomile ash and something faintly metallic. And there, seated cross-legged among scrolls and dried herbs, is a dream interpreter. She doesn't look up as you enter. She simply gestures toward the empty cushion across from her. Couldn't sleep, she asks. You shake your head. She smiles knowingly. Lettuce again. You blink. She nods. It's always the lettuce. Tonight's story winds its way through a quieter tradition, the Roman art of dream reading, and why lettuce, despite its blandness, had a peculiar knack for stirring the unconscious. Let's begin with the scroll she's holding. It's not medical, it's not religious. It's a dream journal written by soldiers, farmers, widows, slaves. People who couldn't read Cicero but knew what it meant to wake up sweating or laughing or wondering whether a goat in a purple robe meant bad weather or good fortune. Historical fact of the night dream interpretation connectura was a real Roman practice often passed down orally. While elite dream theory focused on omens and signs from gods, common people used herbs, foods, and sleep rituals to influence or decode dreams, and lettuce played a curious role. According to some dreams, after lettuce were soft-edged, symbols came slower, characters blurred, but others claimed lettuce made dreams too quiet, like whispering through fog. And here's your odd detail. In at least one preserved Roman folk scroll, lettuce is described as a dream anchor. The phrase appears in a charm: if your dreams float, anchor them with the cool leaf. Bind it in silk, place it beneath your bed, and the truth will stay. You ask the interpreter if it works. She shrugs, sometimes. She places a bowl of soaked lettuce near a flickering oil lamp. The steam rises slowly. It's not the leaf, she says. It's the ritual, the belief, the pause. She tells you of a merchant who dreamed of a glass lion after eating too much grilled lettuce. A mother who saw her unborn child's face in her sleep after pressing lettuce to her temples. A boy who stopped sleepwalking only after a priest blessed his salad. Coincidence? Probably. But then again, the brain listens to stories, even when the mouth is asleep. Academic question of the night: were Roman beliefs about lettuce-induced dreams psychological projection or a form of intuitive herbalism using mild sedation? Ives and suggestion to influence the fragile boundaries between waking and sleeping. You sip a warm drink, she hands you fennel honey and something faintly bitter. Not lettuce this time, but you wouldn't be surprised if it was near the pot. The tent quiets. You lie back on a pile of folded cloth. The dream interpreter begins humming not a song exactly, but a pattern, a rhythm older than language, the kind you don't remember learning but recognize in your chest. She places a cool leaf on your forehead. You'll dream of water, she says, and maybe understanding. You close your eyes, and as you drift, the dreams begin not with drama or symbols, but with light, warmth, a breeze that smells like mint and memory. And lettuce. Always lettuce. Now your three sleepy smiles. A Roman joke book includes the line, dreamed of swimming in salad, woke up wet and disappointed. A child's lullaby ends with sleep like the lettuce low to the ground with no reason to rise. And one interpreter's final note in a lost scroll: the man who dreams in green wakes in peace. You drift now held in a sleep that's neither ancient nor modern, but simply human. Because deep down every generation dreams, and every generation tries to explain it. And sometimes they blame the lettuce. The dreams haven't quite ended yet. You stir in the half-light still wrapped in the rhythm of the interpreter's tent, but the air has changed. The scent of warm herbs is fading, replaced by something sharper: salt ash and excitement. You open your eyes to find yourself in a place where quiet and chaos hold hands. You're in a Roman military camp. Not on the front line, not yet, but in the inner circle where commanders sleep lightly and soldiers dice for copper coins, where armor glints in firelight and battle plans are drawn with crumbs on rough tables. But tonight, you're not here for war. You're here for a question whispered around every campfire. Should the soldiers eat lettuce? Yes, even here, lettuce sparks debate. Because while Roman military diets were famously strict grains, pulses, vinegar water, some camps allowed a modest herb garden near the kitchens. A few heads of lettuce, parsley, maybe some garlic. But lettuce was tricky. Some commanders swore it kept men calm, reduced nighttime restlessness, and helped with digestion. Others believed it made soldiers sluggish, dreamy, and worst of all, slow to rise when alarms rang at dawn. Historical fact of the night. The Roman army maintained detailed dietary records, and in colder regions like Britannia and Germania, lettuce was discouraged during active campaigns, listed among foods to be avoided in damp months. The reasoning, it cooled the body too much and slowed the soldier's pulse. One medical officer writing from a remote fort claimed our men sleep too deeply when fed the green. Their dreams are pleasant, their spears less so. You move closer to a small group of centurions discussing tactics. One leans over and mutters, "No more lettuce on March days." Cassius dreamed of goats again. The others groan. Apparently, goat dreams are a known sign of overindulgence in greens. Strange detail of the night, a superstition arose among certain legions that dreaming of lettuce before battle was bad luck. It suggested hesitation, softness, or distraction. Some even carried amulets inscribed with "no greens before glory." You walk past rows of sleeping men. Some lie perfectly still, armor at their side blades beneath their cots. Others toss and mumble, dreaming of mothers, of rivers of meals far away from war. One young soldier sits awake, knees tucked to chest, chewing thoughtfully on a single lettuce leaf. You raise an eyebrow. He shrugs, "Helps me remember who I am." He's not afraid it dulls his edge. He's afraid of forgetting the boy who once gardened with his grandfather in Campania. The boy who knew every seed by name. Lettuce for him is memory. Not medicine, not risk. Just a grounding. Let's pause now for your academic question. Was the military suspicion of lettuce a rare moment when Roman pragmatism clashed with cultural tradition? Or did it reflect a broader truth that the line between food and feeling strength and softness was always thinner than it looked? Because even in armor you carry old beliefs. And even with calloused hands, you still want to sleep well. Now, Three Chuckles Military Edition. A marching song ends with the line, "I'd rather fight a barbarian than eat another salad." In one officer's notes, discipline tight, rations fair, morale low after lettuce incident, and graffiti scratched onto a shield. This side for the enemy, this side for the lettuce. You smile. Because somewhere beneath the jokes, the soldier's pride in the night patrols is the same truth as in the villa, the monastery, the servant's room. People want peace, people want sleep. And sometimes people reach for the same strange, cool leaf, hoping it will quiet something inside them just long enough to dream. The fires in the camp are down to embers. The stars are beginning to blink slower. And the soldier with the lettuce has laid back, now eyes open, one hand resting lightly on his chest. He does not sleep yet, but he will. And when he does, the dreams will come. Soft, green, maybe with goats. You leave the camp quietly. No one hears your steps. The guards are half asleep, the tents all breathing in sync. The last embers give off just enough light to make the path shimmer, and somewhere behind you, the soldier who couldn't sleep finally does. You walk east now, toward something slower, older and strangely timeless, a farmhouse. Just a modest one. Stone walls, a clay roof patched more with hope than skill, and a garden that grows not for trade, but for stew pots and memory. And it's in this humble patch of dirt that the lettuce finally feels at home. Because tonight we return to where it all begins. Not in scrolls, not in satire, not in medicine or myth, but in soil. You step into the garden just before dawn. The leaves shimmer with dew. A cat walks across the field like it owns the empire. And an old woman, older than the house by the way she moves, stoops to inspect a row of lettuce heads with hands like bark and eyes like fog. She doesn't say hello. She just says, "You're late." They already know. You're not sure who they are, but you sit beside her anyway. She begins to speak not to you really, but to the lettuce. "Soft night, wasn't it, dream heavy?" Then she picks up a copper bowl and begins harvesting. gently, as if plucking memories, one leaf at a time. Historical fact of the night. In rural Roman farms, especially in southern regions, lettuce was often considered too useful to waste on superstition. It was eaten raw when young cooked, when bitter pressed into oil, dried into seed powder, and even mashed into poultices for livestock. It was practical, quiet, constant. And here's your odd detail. Some farmers swore that lettuce plants could predict weather closing earlier, before rain wilting subtly on storm-bound days and curling protectively during lunar eclipses. You ask the woman if that's true. She shrugs. Sometimes they know. Sometimes they're just tired. She hands you a leaf. You don't eat it, you just hold it. It's cool, it's damp, it feels like sleep in your palm. You help her carry the bowl into the house where a small fire crackles and a pot simmers gently. She tosses in a few leaves, a pinch of salt, and mutters something under her breath that might be a recipe or a spell. Soup before sleep, she says. Even in the morning. Especially in the morning. That's when the night still clings. As the soup simmers, she pulls out a bundle from under the bed, dried lettuce tied with red thread. She hangs it above the hearth. For my husband, she explains. He used to wake screaming. Then I remembered my grandmother's trick. Did it work, you ask? She pauses, then says he sleeps now. And that's all she offers. Academic question of the night was the rural use of lettuce as a sleep ritual, a relic of pre-Roman animism, treating plants as living companions, or simply a survival method, blending practicality with placebo in a culture where rest was a luxury. You'll never know for sure. But watching her move, cook, hang herbs, and listen not to you, but to the garden, you begin to understand some knowledge isn't passed down in books. It's kneaded into bread, stirred into pots, tied into bundles, and sometimes held in silence by women who never asked to be remembered, only to be left in peace. Your 3 sleepy smiles for the night, a rustic riddle scratched into a cellar wall. I do not speak, but I quiet the tongue. I do not move, but I help the bed. Who am I? A farmer's prayer. Let the sheep dream of grass, the wife of figs and me, just of stillness. And a child's bedtime whisper, Mama, don't forget the sleep leaf. My dreams are too noisy tonight. The soup is done. You sip slowly and the heat spreads through your chest like understanding. Not flashy, not profound, just warm, honest. Outside, the garden begins to glow. Not from magic, just sunrise. And as you step out into the light, you feel it. The weight of generations growing in rows, quiet as breath, steady as truth. Because in the end, maybe the Romans weren't afraid of lettuce. Maybe they trusted it too much. And maybe that's the stranger thing. You leave the farmhouse just as the sun crests over the hills. The warmth follows you like a blanket that's been hung outside all morning, soft, comforting, with just a hint of wind still trapped in the folds. You don't go far. Just over the next ridge lies something older than any garden, older than any scroll, a space where words were rarely written down, but often spoken in secret beneath trees or near fountains, a place where knowledge didn't wear a toga. Tonight we find ourselves among the midwives. And yes, lettuce comes with us. You arrive at a healing circle half hidden in a grove. It's not official, it's not blessed. But women come here when temples give them too little, when doctors dismiss them, when the city's noise is too sharp to hold grief. You watch as a woman approaches the fire with a bowl of steeped lettuce leaves tinged with rose petals and fennel seeds. She places it near a girl whose breath trembles like a dropped coin. They do not say what hurts, but they brew soothing anyway. Tonight we explore lettuce as comfort, not for the sick or the sleepless, but for the overwhelmed, the grieving, the body in transition. Historical fact of the night: Roman midwives, obstetrices, were deeply respected, particularly among the working classes. They often used herbal treatments, including lettuce-infused compresses and teas, to soothe anxiety, reduce postpartum discomfort, and calm wandering womb symptoms. Yes, that was a thing. While physicians argued in marble halls, midwives boiled greens with honey and said, drink, then rest, then talk. Not always in that order. Odd detail of the night, some healing chants included lines like, let the leaf take the edge, let the stem steady the breath. No one wrote them down, but they lived in mouths in steam and shared silence. You sit beside the girl now. She stares at the bowl like it might answer a question she hasn't asked yet. Will it work, she whispers. One of the older women smiles. It doesn't have to, it just needs to sit with you. Because sometimes medicine is not what enters the body, it's what enters the moment. And now a different patient, a boy, 10 maybe. His sister died last week. He hasn't spoken since. He won't eat. But tonight he lets them place a warm lettuce wrap on his chest and hum the same lullaby they used when he was born. He doesn't cry, but he sleeps. And that is enough. Let's pause for our academic question. Did the calming effects of lettuce in these emotional rituals stem from the plant itself, or from the layered act of being seen, soothed, and tended to in a world where formal medicine often overlooked emotion? Because when a healer places a bowl of greens in your lap and says, "This is not for fixing, only for softening," you believe her. Even if just for a night. Your three gentle giggles, a midwife's note. Do not let the husbands near the lettuce. They'll insist it's political. A scratched line on a birthroom wall. Here the leaf is quiet. Be quieter still. And a common blessing whispered to newborns may, your sleep be deep, your dreams kind, and your soup always green. The girl by the fire is asleep now. So is the boy. So are two of the healers slumped shoulder-to-shoulder bowls forgotten in their laps. The lettuce has wilted slightly, but somehow it's still holding space. And you two feel something shift, not dramatic, just subtle. Like a knot inside you has loosened a little. Like you've been allowed to rest without proving you've earned it. Because in this circle, nothing is demanded, only offered. And for once, lettuce doesn't mean fear or medicine or metaphor. It just means you can be held. The healing circle fades behind you like steam from an emptied bowl. You walk slowly now, not because you're tired, but because the story has changed tempo. You can feel it. There's a gentleness to the path ahead, as if even the earth knows you've been carrying too many meanings in one small leaf. So tonight we walk somewhere quieter. We walk to a library. Not the grand kind. Not scrolls cataloged by topic or shelves tended by stoic old men in stiff robes. This is a private study tucked in the home of a retired Roman clerk. A man who once copied contracts by day and collected strange stories by night. His house smells of wax and dust and mint tea and lettuce. Of course. He welcomes you without a word and points to a low table stacked high with worn parchment fables, parables, half-silly allegories. Tales not of gods or generals, but of lettuce who talk dream and occasionally fall in love. Tonight's story isn't about history or medicine, it's about folklore. Because somewhere along the winding Roman road, the lettuce stopped being just a plant and started becoming a character. You sit and begin to read. The first tale, The Lettuce Who Wanted to See the Sea. In it, a young lettuce bored with garden life convinces the wind to carry it to the coast. It gets sand in its roots, nearly eaten by a goat, and finally rolls into the tide only to shout, "It's too wet," and beg to go home. Moral, some dreams wilt in salt water. You smile. The next story, The Man Who Could Not Lie Near Lettuce. A merchant finds that whenever he sleeps near lettuce, he talks in his sleep and reveals secrets. Afraid of exposing too much, he moves to the mountains. But he forgets the shepherds grow lettuce too. He ends up confessing to a sheep. Morale, the leaf knows. And another, the lazy hero. A warrior destined to slay a monster eats too much lettuce at the feast and falls asleep for 3 days. When he wakes, the monster has befriended the village and opened a bakery. Moral, some problems resolve themselves if you nap long enough. Historical fact of the night. Though largely undocumented in formal Latin literature, regional Roman storytelling, especially among rural and coastal communities, use plants as characters to teach lessons, poke fun at authority, or just entertain children at dusk. Lettuce, due to its reputation for slowness and sleep, became a comedic and comforting figure. Odd detail from a late imperial scroll. A fragment of a child's play script includes lines like, "Who stole my dream? Not I said the turnip." "I was asleep," said the lettuce. You close the scroll and look up. The old clerk has nodded off in his chair. A sprig of lettuce lies on the table beside his cup. Not a prop, not a cure, just part of the room. Like an old friend too familiar to question. Let's pause now for your academic question. Were these lettuce tales remnants of pre-Roman plant lore, or the natural result of a society that after centuries of conquest and law found itself needing softness in its stories? Because when the Senate grows cold, when the empire groans, when the gods stay silent, sometimes what remains is a whisper from the garden. 3 sleepy smiles from the scrolls. A bedtime riddle: I never run, but I help you stop. I never talk, but I hear your thoughts. Who am I? A doodle on a child's writing tablet, a lettuce wearing sandals and carrying a scroll labeled Dream Map. And a story ending with this line. And the lettuce, now tired of knowing too much, grew roots and finally slept. You sigh. Not from exhaustion, from peace. The room is warm. The clerk snores softly. The scrolls have begun to blur. You curl your fingers around the edge of one and close your eyes the way children do when they know the story's over, but don't want it to end just yet. And in that hush, you hear it, the soft rustle of a page, or maybe a leaf, or maybe a dream. It doesn't matter, it's enough. You wake but gently, not with a start, not with a gasp, just with the soft awareness that the light has changed. The room is dimmer now, filled with the glow of an oil lamp and the slow creak of the old clerk's chair as he rises and stretches. You stayed longer than most, he says, his voice a whisper, folded in parchment. You nod. He hands you something wrapped in cloth. It's not a scroll, not a relic. It's a head of lettuce. He grins, for the road and for the dreams. And so you go. Tonight you take that gift, simple green, slightly cool to the touch, and walk through the city as it prepares for night. Lanterns flicker in windows. Doves tuck themselves under eaves. Children are herded inside with threats of no figs tomorrow if they don't sleep now. But you follow the lettuce. Or rather, you follow the people who still believe in it. You arrive at a public fountain tucked in the courtyard of an insula, a Roman apartment building. Laundry hangs from lines overhead. A woman fills a jug, another combs her child's hair. And nearby, three old men argue with a passion reserved for either politics or breakfast. Tonight it's lettuce. You can't eat it after the 9th hour, one insists. It disturbs the spleen. Nonsense, says the second. I eat it every evening. Haven't had a dream since 14 BC. Exactly, the third says. You've forgotten how. They all nod solemnly. You sit beside them and unwrap your gift. One of them whistles. Nice head, he says. You keeping it for dreams or digestion? You haven't decided yet. Because in this courtyard, lettuce is more than superstition. It's a neighborhood currency, a topic more enduring than empire, more personal than poetry. And everyone has a lettuce story. Historical fact of the night. In working-class Roman housing blocks, lettuce was one of the few vegetables that could be grown in rooftop pots or shared courtyards. In its short growth cycle and minimal space requirements, made it a common fixture among communal meals and urban remedies. And here's your odd detail. Some insulae had sleep corners, shaded nooks where people left dried herbs, lavender bundles, and yes, sometimes a leaf of lettuce pressed between stones. It wasn't for eating, it was just a gesture, like leaving a nightlight on for the soul. You follow a boy now, barefoot and bold, as he climbs 3 stories up a narrow stairwell to a rooftop garden. He waters the pot's parsley, mint a single tomato vine, and checks on his lettuce. He doesn't pick it, he just sits beside it. I tell it things, he says, before bed. What kinds of things, you ask? He shrugs, what I don't want to dream about. It makes sense. Because in a world of collapsing walls, crowded floors, loud neighbors, and bad plumbing, lettuce became a listener. A soft place to press your thoughts. Academic question of the night. Was lettuce used as a dream ritual by urban dwellers out of tradition? Or was it adopted in the city as a form of quiet rebellion, a way to carve peace out of noise, leaf by leaf? You may never know. But watching the boy rest his forehead against the pot, you suspect the answer doesn't matter. What matters is the gesture, the pause, the quiet asking of the green thing to hold something for you overnight. And now your 3 sleepy smiles. An elderly woman says, if you eat lettuce in silence, it listens better. Then she shushes her soup. A rooftop poem scratched into clay city loud windows. Thin lettuce, soft dreams begin. And the fountain wall etched long ago, here under stone and sky I rest. Lettuce beside me. Let no gods interrupt. You rise from the bench. The old men wave you off like an old friend. The boy falls asleep near his pot, curled like a cat. The moon rises slowly over tiled roofs. And you walk home, lettuce still in hand. Because sometimes sleep isn't something you fall into. Sometimes it's something you prepare for. With hot water, with quiet stories, with a green leaf that knows how to wait, and so do you. By now you know the rhythm, the hush between voices, the weight of a leaf in your palm, the slow blooming of stories in unexpected corners. But tonight we go somewhere a little stranger, somewhere the rules of reason stretch like wax under summer heat. You follow a trail out of the city, past the vineyards, past the shrines, into the sacred grove of an old countryside oracle. Yeah, an oracle. But don't picture a grand temple with priests in gold. No thunder, no thunderbolts, no chorus of prophecy. Just a modest hut, a circle of olive trees, and a woman with wild hair and a sharper tongue than most senators. She sits on a stool mumbling to a bowl of salad. You hesitate. She waves you over impatiently. Come sit, she says. The lettuce is speaking. You try not to look confused. She holds up a leaf like a scroll. This one says someone nearby is hiding a goat in their house. You look around. She narrows her eyes. It's probably you. Tonight we explore lettuce as divination, yes, really. Because if the Romans believed dreams could be messages and lettuce influenced dreams well, then lettuce might just whisper secrets if you knew how to listen. Historical fact of the night. In certain rural cults and mystery traditions, especially those loosely tied to fertility deities like Ceres and Dionysus, lettuce was used in dream interpretation rituals. Participants would place a leaf under their pillow after reciting a question aloud, hoping for an answer by morning. Not unlike flipping a coin, except greener and slightly crunchier. Odd detail of the night one recorded ritual in a backwater town involved placing a lettuce leaf inside a sandal and hanging it from a tree. If it stayed overnight, your wish would come true. If it fell, bad news. If it disappeared entirely, the gods were tired of your drama. You ask the oracle what she sees tonight. She sniffs the bowl. Someone's aunt is cheating at dice. And also someone wants to know if their neighbor is stealing laundry. Is that all in the lettuce? No, she admits. Some of it's just gossip, but the leaf makes it feel truer. You sit with her by the fire. She hands you your own bowl. You stare into it. It doesn't speak. She shrugs. Try asking nicely. So you do. You ask a quiet question, one you're not even sure how to phrase. Something about whether you're moving in the right direction, whether this quiet wandering has meaning, or if you're just tracing footsteps in soft sand that will blow away by morning. You wait. The lettuce says nothing. Then again, maybe it doesn't need to. Because in this strange place under stars that blink like old friends, the silence feels like an answer. Let's pause here for your academic question. Were these lettuce oracles serious spiritual practices or simply poetic rituals people created to make sense of uncertainty, granting agency to a plant so ordinary it became extraordinary by the asking? Either way, it worked. It worked then, it works now. 3 peculiar chuckles from the grove. A scratch note on the hut wall. If your lettuce tells you to start a war, get a second opinion. A child's question. If I eat the leaf before sleeping, will I dream its dream or mine? And the oracle's muttering, the gods don't care about your taxes, but they do care if you overwater. You finish your bowl. She takes it gently, drops the used leaves in a basket and murmurs, thanks not to you, but to the plant. You walk away lighter, not because you have clarity, but because you have permission not to. The stars flicker above. The trees whisper stories to each other. And somewhere in the dark, a sandal swings gently from a branch. Still holding a leaf. Still holding a wish. You've walked with lettuce through libraries and kitchens, rooftops and gardens, temples and taverns. But tonight, something shifts. You feel it in the air, a little cooler, a little heavier. Like a page about to turn. Like a dream that knows it's almost time to wake. You don't resist it. You follow the breeze into the Roman countryside, where the stars are louder and the hills no longer try to hide their curves. And there, nestled in the valley like a forgotten punctuation mark, stands a cemetery. Small, quiet, mostly unmarked, but not unloved. You enter respectfully. Not because you expect ghosts or curses, but because even the lettuce seems subdued here. Yes, even here. Because tonight we explore lettuce in mourning, how a leafy green so tied to sleep dreams and silence also found its way into grief. You crouch beside a stone where someone has left an offering, a sprig of rosemary, a crust of bread, and a single folded lettuce leaf. The wind shifts just enough to ruffle it like a final breath. You sit and listen. Historical fact of the night. In several Roman funerary rites, especially those influenced by Egyptian traditions via Alexandria, lettuce was offered to the dead as a symbol of rest, peace, and safe passage. It wasn't about food, it was about sending a message. May you sleep well now. Pliny the Elder, ever dramatic, called it the herb of eternal calm. Odd detail from funerary texts. In at least 2 recorded tomb inscriptions, lettuce was described as a pillow for the soul. Some mourners even planted lettuce near graves, believing it would absorb sorrow and keep restless spirits grounded. You walk among the stones and see small clusters of it still growing. Wild, unkempt, unharvested. You wonder, did someone plant these? Or did the grief do it? You reach a shaded corner where a man in worn robes kneels beside a mound. He hums not a song exactly, more like a tune that once had words. You don't speak, but he notices you anyway. She loved lettuce, he says simply. Not to eat, just to grow. Said it reminded her to slow down. He chuckles, then sniffles. So now I grow it here. Not because it helps, just because it's her. You nod. Because what else can you do? Sometimes the most powerful rituals aren't sacred or sanctioned. They're personal, repetitive, quiet, and very green. Let's pause now for your academic question. Was lettuce truly intended as a funerary symbol, or did it simply become one because its qualities mirrored what mourners needed: rest, quiet, and something soft to tend to, while time tried its best to move forward? Either way, it stayed. Through floods and fires, through forgotten names and crumbling stones, lettuce remained in cemeteries not as a crop, but as a companion. And here are your 3 sleepy laments with a smile, a mourning note scratched into a funerary pot. You sleep now, I grow what you loved. A grave marked only by a lettuce leaf pinned under a rock with the words, she was gentle. And a child's goodbye, I planted the softest one for you, so you'll never wake up grumpy. You stand. The man waves you off, though he never stops humming. You leave the cemetery not with sorrow, but with reverence. For the simple truth that even in death, people wanted sleep to be comfortable. Not just for the body, but for the spirit. And if that means tucking in a lettuce leaf at the end of life, so be it. You walk on. The stars above blink kindly. The earth beneath feels solid again. And somewhere in the fields, you spot a patch of lettuce glinting in the moonlight. Not harvested, not guarded, just growing. As if it knows that someone someday will need it again. By now, lettuce is no longer just a vegetable. It's a lullaby, a witness, a quiet companion to grief and gossip, laughter and loss. But tonight, we turn the story upside down, literally. Because while lettuce has lulled people into sleep, it has also sparked panic, confusion, even fury. Tonight, we visit the strange tale of the Roman general who burned his garden. And yes, it all began with lettuce. You find the villa half in ruins, half in denial. Ivy covers the outer wall. The statues have lost noses, fingers, and in one case, a whole head. But the garden is mostly intact except for one blackened patch of earth where nothing grows. Not even weeds. You step into the courtyard where a servant still tends the rest of the plants. She gestures toward the scorched spot. That's where he lost it. You raise an eyebrow. He blamed the lettuce, she says, lowering her voice. Let's go back. Historical fact of the night: General Lucius Quirinius Valens, semi-famous, often shirtless in marble busts, commanded Roman forces in Gaul. According to surviving letters written by his very tired scribe, Valens was obsessed with order, drills at dawn, polished sandals. Even his salads were arranged by leaf size. One year, during an extended leave from duty, he took up gardening. He fell in love with lettuce, specifically cultivating the perfectly symmetrical romaine. He tracked its growth, talked to it, wrote poetry about its obedient crispness. Then something went wrong. According to the letters, his prized row of lettuces bolted early, sent up flower stalks turned bitter, and defied every carefully measured expectation. He was enraged. He refused visitors, screamed at the sky, called the lettuce insubordinate. Then one night he burned the entire garden. Odd detail of the night before torching it, Valens reportedly told his household, "If the leaf will not bow, then the root must answer to flame," which is either poetic or deeply unwell. No charges were ever filed. But from then on, his soldiers nicknamed him Lactuca Rex, the lettuce king. They carved it into his shield while he slept, and possibly his sandals. Let's pause for our academic question. Did Roman elite men's obsession with controlling nature gardens' wives, even lettuce, reflect deeper anxieties about maintaining status and order in an unpredictable empire? Was Valens a madman or just a man who couldn't stand to be defied by something so leafy? You walk through the ruined patch. The soil still smells faintly of ash and ego. But near the edge, you spot something. A small green sprout, uninvited, unafraid. It's lettuce. Of course it is. 3 chuckle-worthy footnotes from the lettuce king. A wax tablet recovered from the villa reads, "Memo punish leaf that faced west." A house slave's doodle shows a lettuce wearing a helmet with the caption, "General Crispus." And a later note from Valens himself, "Next time I plant olives." At least they know how to wait. You step away from the burned soil and into the rest of the garden where the trees don't seem to care about your presence. They just grow. Unmeasured, unmanaged, uneven, and beautiful. Because perhaps the moral tonight is simple. You cannot control lettuce. You can cultivate it, appreciate it, even be comforted by it. But the moment you demand obedience from a plant that literally wilts on purpose, you lose. You head back through the crumbling villa, past the statue with no head and smile, at the servant still trimming herbs. She holds up a leaf. Want one, she asks. You nod. And just like that, the garden begins again. Not with a flame, but with forgiveness. You've wandered far from the main road now. The sky stretches endlessly above you, filled with stars so still they might be painted. The wind is soft, almost shy, like it knows you've come to a place not many do. Tonight we don't enter a home or a garden. We step into a memory, an old one. A worn path leads you to the edge of a hill where the grass parts like a curtain to reveal a stone circle long forgotten. Cracked with time, covered in moss, and in the center, barely more than a shadow in the soil, a ring of wild lettuce growing low, defiant and untouched. You sit, not because someone told you to, but because the place asked for it. You can feel it, the hush of something sacred, or at least carefully hidden. Tonight we talk about cults. Yes, real ones. Tiny, fleeting, and deeply in love with lettuce. You probably didn't expect that. But ancient Rome, especially in its more remote regions, was a quilt of local beliefs, whispered rites, and mystery traditions. And not all of them revolved around gods with thunderbolts or wine. Some revolved around leaves. Historical fact of the night by the late Republic and early Empire. Various rural sects, especially women-led spiritual groups, practiced rituals involving lettuce as a symbol of transformation, sleep, and safe passage to the next world. They weren't state-sanctioned, they weren't loud, they were deeply personal. These cults believed that lettuce, unlike other plants, could hold secrets. That its life cycle's soft leaves, sudden flowering, rapid death mirrored the human soul's journey through dreams and beyond. One sect, uncovered only through scattered inscriptions and graffiti, referred to lettuce as the veil, because as they wrote, it lies between the waking and the gone. Odd detail from an old basin fragment, painted inside the rim, were 4 stages of a lettuce leaf from fresh to wilted, each paired with a Roman woman's name and a tiny star. Scholars argue whether these were offerings, roles in a ritual play, or names of initiates who had crossed over. You sit by the circle and imagine them, not in white robes or dramatic poses, but in simple tunics, kneeling like you are pressing hands to earth, whispering truths into lettuce leaves before burying them. Dreams they couldn't say aloud, questions they couldn't ask in daylight, and perhaps hopes they weren't ready to let go of. Let's pause here for your academic question. Were these lettuce cults true spiritual sects or deeply metaphorical practices for women and outcasts to create safe spaces under the cover of symbolic gardening? And does it matter? Because they left behind something no law ever could: rituals of rest. Here are your 3 gentle marvels from the cult of the leaf. A stone inscription reads, "Speak once to the leaf, sleep twice as deep." A poem scratched under a garden bench. They call it lettuce. We call it lantern. And a lullaby fragment preserved in wax lay the leaf upon your brow. Let the night begin somehow. You run your fingers along the mossy stone. It's cool, damp with history, alive in the way ruins rarely are. You don't need incense or chant or doctrine. You have the wind, the stars, and a ring of leaves that know more than they say. When you rise, a few small seeds stick to your sleeve. You don't brush them off. You carry them. Because maybe that's the only kind of membership that ever mattered. No oath, just the willingness to sit in silence and let a leaf listen. The path winds downward now, as if your steps are being gently tugged towards something softer. The night is deeper than before, thicker somehow, but not frightening. It feels like velvet over your shoulders. You move carefully, not out of fear, but reverence. Because this next place isn't marked on any map. It's only found when you're ready to find it. At the foot of the hill lies a small stream, moonlight, curling over the surface like spilled milk. And beside it you see what looks like a circle of stones, arranged deliberately, and within that circle, a single perfectly tended patch of lettuce glowing with dew. No house nearby, no fence. Just this, a green altar in the dark. And sitting beside it, barefoot and humming softly, is a woman with a basket. She doesn't look up. She says you came late. You apologize. She smiles without turning. You're right on time. Tonight we've arrived at a tradition almost entirely lost to history because it was never written down. Tonight is about the caretakers of lettuce, the ones who didn't grow it to eat or trade or preach with. They grew it to guard dreams. Historical fact of the night. In a handful of rural Roman settlements, archaeologists have found unusually well-maintained lettuce beds, strangely placed often away from main living spaces, always accompanied by personal items, a child's bracelet, a carved bird, a scrap of wool. These gardens seem to serve no agricultural purpose. In oral traditions from those regions preserved only in local superstitions, lettuce wasn't just for sleep. It was a dream vessel. You didn't sleep to forget. You slept to store something, and the lettuce kept it safe. The woman beside the bed begins her ritual. She plucks a leaf, not the biggest or the greenest, just the one that folds inward like it's already tired. She dips it in the stream, holds it to her forehead, and whispers. You don't hear the words, but you feel them, like water slipping between fingers gone before you can grasp it. She places the leaf in her basket and pats the soil gently. Then another, and another. You ask what she's doing. She shrugs, tucking in stories. She lets you try. You choose a leaf. You whisper something you haven't dared say out loud, not because it's shameful, but because it's heavy. And as the leaf cradles the sound, it seems to lighten. You lay it down gently, like putting a thought to bed. Odd detail from a weathered tile fragment nearby, a pattern of concentric circles, each marked not with dates or gods, but phases of sleep, doze, drift, dream, forget, remember. In the center, a tiny green leaf carved so delicately, it's nearly invisible. Let's pause for your academic question. Did these rituals develop from forgotten myths, or were they simply the natural result of people needing a place to put what they couldn't carry? A kind of emotional composting, perhaps. 3 peaceful treasures from the stream's edge. A lullaby carved into driftwood breathe with the leaf rest where roots weave. A child's prayer. Please keep my dream, I'll be back soon. And a woven bracelet tucked under a lettuce stalk with beads spelling out, nothing lost. The woman gathers her basket. She says nothing but nods as she leaves, disappearing into the dark as quietly as she came. You're alone now, but not really. The lettuce hums with memory. The stream carries stories downstream, and the soil beneath your feet feels gentler somehow. Not because it's softer, but because it listens. You rest your hand on the earth one last time before rising. You don't take a leaf with you. You leave one behind, just in case someone else comes looking for silence. You walk slower now, not from weariness, but from a sense that something is ending. Not collapsing, not vanishing, just folding in on itself. Like a lettuce leaf after sunset curling toward rest. Tonight the road brings you to the threshold of forgetting, and that's not a bad thing. Because here on the edge of memory and myth, you find a market, but not one alive with trade and shouting. This one is closed, quiet, stalls covered in cloth, crates stacked neatly, scales resting still. But someone has left a single basket of lettuce on a wooden bench. No price, no sign, just a note. Take one if you've remembered too much. You take a seat. And you do remember everything. The monastery gardens, the burned villa, the oracle's bowl, the gravestone with a leaf, the woman at the stream, the whispers in libraries and on rooftops. They blur together now, not in confusion, but in comfort. A tapestry of lettuce stories, each folded neatly into the next. And tonight you arrive at the last belief. Not a religion, not a ritual, just an idea. That lettuce, this common green, often soggy thing, was never just about sleep or digestion or odd general meltdowns. It was about gentleness, a chosen softness, a deliberate quiet in a world that shouted, historical fact of the night. In later Roman culture, lettuce became a kind of shorthand in art and poetry for chosen peace. Not the peace of conquest, but the kind you make when you choose not to escalate, to lay down your arms, to rest without guilt. One poet wrote to love lettuce is to know when to stop. Odd detail from a mosaic fragment in a bathhouse changing room. A man sits on a stone bench holding a lettuce leaf like a scroll. The caption, all declarations may be revised after lunch. You laugh, because of course they may. You lean back against the stall and take a leaf from the basket. It's perfectly imperfect. A little wilted, a little sweet, you don't eat it. You hold on, you hold it. And remember this final curious truth. For centuries, lettuce was used not just for sleep or sorrow, but for forgiveness. Arguments were ended with lettuce. Disputes were softened. After long, loud feasts, it was served at the end, not as dessert, but as a signal. A peace offering. A way to say, we're still here. We made it through the noise. Let's rest now. Let's close this part with your academic question. Was lettuce's cultural power due to its properties, or did humans project softness onto it? Because we needed something simple, something green to absorb our exhaustion? Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe what matters is that the tradition continues in whispers. In bedtime salads, in dreams shared with leaves, in stories like this one. And here are your 3 final smiles before the last page. A note scribbled on papyrus in childlike handwriting. Lettuce is brave because it grows without shouting. A cook's journal entry: I served lettuce to both sides. No one argued after. And a piece of graffiti under a bridge. Eat soft things, say soft things, be soft things. You rise from the bench, leaf still in hand. And as you walk back through the silent market, you realize something: the world didn't quiet down while you slept. You brought the quiet with you, one leaf at a time. You returned to where you began. Not the same place exactly, but a familiar rhythm. Stone underfoot, cool air brushing your cheek, the kind of stillness that doesn't demand anything from you. Just a gentle invitation: rest here a while. You follow it, and there it is again, lettuce. But not in a garden this time. Not in a bowl or a book or a grave. It's in a dream. Yours, or someone else's. The difference doesn't matter now. It grows in the center of a circular room, no walls, only columns, holding up a sky painted with memories. The plant glows softly, not magic, not divine, just certain. You sit beside it and all the moments return. The sleepy monks nibbling in silence. The mad general burning leaves. The child planting wishes. The oracle who misquoted lettuce. The mourners who tucked grief beneath roots. The women who wove dreams into petals. The man who whispered his apologies into a salad. And you the traveler, the listener, the soft-footed witness to all things crunchy and sacred. Tonight you don't need a new story. You need closure. Historical fact of the night. By the end of the Roman Empire, lettuce had become almost invisible in state records. But it never vanished from homes, from kitchens, from quiet corners. It faded from poetry, perhaps, but not from practice. Which is its nature, really. To remain quietly, softly, persistently. Odd final detail from a merchant's letter: I planted lettuce for the first time, not to eat, but to see if it would grow. It did. I never harvested it. I just liked knowing it was there. And that's the story, isn't it? Lettuce didn't shape empires. It shaped mornings, meals, apologies, dreams. You press your palm to the ground beside the plant. It feels warm, not like fire, but like memory that's settled, forgiven, folded into something gentle. Let's pause here one last time for your final academic question. Was the story ever really about lettuce, or about what we project onto the quiet things when we need them most? The answer whispers through the dream. Both. 3 final soft laughs to send you off. A schoolchild's riddle carved into wood. What sleeps on your plate and wakes in your heart: lettuce. A lost scroll fragment: when in doubt, eat leaves. When in peace, grow them. And an inscription on a tombstone shaped like a basket. She rested well. So did her garden. You rise, not to leave exactly, just to drift. The dream doesn't end, it lets go, slowly. Like sleep releasing a finger, like a leaf catching the breeze. And as you fade into the soft hush of the night, one truth remains. Lettuce was never just food. It was a lullaby, a green wilting poem we wrote in soil. And now it's time to sleep. The night has grown quiet now. Even the stars seem to exhale. You've wandered through gardens and ruins, myths and meadows, dreams tucked into leaves and laughter whispered into the wind. You've followed lettuce across centuries, not because it demanded your attention, but because it offered you something few things do anymore. A moment to be soft, a chance to rest. Tonight you've listened, not just to me, but to the quiet itself, to the hush between footsteps, to the curl of a leaf, to the truth that sometimes the most enduring things in history are the ones no one writes down, not because they don't matter, but because they matter so quietly. And maybe you're still awake, or maybe you're somewhere between here and sleep. That's okay. There's no rush. The story will still be here when you drift back. So tuck yourself in, friend. Let the past grow soft in your hands. Let the present forget its sharp corners. Let your dreams be green and gentle and full of leaves that never demand, only offer. That's the story for tonight. May your dreams be filled with wonder and peace.